Qantas has reached an agreement with the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission to settle a lawsuit against the airline for selling seats on flights that had already been cancelled. Under the settlement, Qantas will institute a remediation program for affected customers. Subject to the approval of the Federal Court of Australia, the airline will also pay a $100 million civil penalty to the federal government. ACCC Chair Gina Cass-Gottlieb held a news conference a short time ago, and we can bring you her comments now.
Qantas admits that it misled thousands of its customers by continuing to sell tickets on flights it had already decided to cancel. It also admits that it misled existing ticket holders when it failed to promptly inform them of the cancellations. The ACCC and Qantas will ask the Federal Court to impose a $100 million penalty for breach of the Australian consumer law. Qantas has also committed today to pay in total $20 million to approximately 87,000 customers who were sold tickets on flights that were already cancelled. In addition, Qantas has undertaken to the ACCC to not repeat this conduct in the future, to notify Qantas and Jetstar customers promptly when flights are cancelled, and to not continue to sell tickets on flights that have been cancelled. This was egregious and unacceptable conduct by Qantas. Many Australian families and business travellers made plans after making bookings on phantom flights. This $100 million penalty, if accepted by the Federal Court, will send a strong message to Australian companies that they must comply with the Australian consumer law. The ACCC assures the community we take action to make sure that businesses communicate clearly, accurately and honestly with their customers at all times. What is really important is that they have admitted that they misled customers by continuing to sell tickets on flights that they'd already decided to cancel and by failing to inform. They accept and admit that that is conduct in breach of the Australian consumer law that warrants, and they will jointly with us submit to the court that a $100 million penalty is appropriate. We, in the interests of getting an early settlement and the additional payments and compensation to customers, we are no longer taking forward a requirement that they admit to a contravention of selling a service and receiving a payment with no intention of providing that service.
With more on this, we're joined by the ABC's senior business correspondent, Peter Ryan. Peter, what exactly has Qantas admitted to here?
Well, good morning, Gemma. These admissions by Qantas is quite remarkable because late last year, when what was then allegations emerged and the ACCC said they were taking Qantas to court, Qantas said they would contest the claims. They denied the allegations. But now what we have is an admission from Qantas that they misled consumers about these flights that had been cancelled. In other words, these ghost flights that people in good faith had bought but later discovered, probably too late, that the flights had been cancelled. So in terms of this settlement, which has to be approved by the Federal Court, $100 million that Qantas will have to pay out as part of a civil penalty, but also around $20 million additionally to those consumers or customers or travellers who were impacted by these cancellations. And that works out to be about $225 on average for domestic cancellations to $450 for international. So we're talking about 86,000 flights. So a very big deal for Qantas, but also an important part of what we saw happening with Qantas last year, which resulted in the departure of Chief Executive Alan Joyce, major reputational problems, and clearly Qantas has agreed to this settlement. It's made these admissions in a vital or a quite a drastic attempt to recover some of its quite battered reputation.
And Peter, recap for us, what will the remediation look like?
Well, the remediation, as I mentioned, is going to be for international passengers, $450 for international passengers who've been impacted, $250 for domestic. So 86,000 passengers, $20 million. So that's on top of the $100 million civil penalty. So all up for Qantas, to get this out of the way, it's $120 million at a time when the airline is under a lot of pressure. There's a new chief executive, Vanessa Hudson, who we'll be hearing from later on this morning. We'll also be hearing from the ACCC chair, Gina Cass-Gottlieb, who really, in her tenure, this is a major victory for the competition regulator. And she has described Qantas's conduct as egregious and unacceptable. So once again, quite remarkable that Qantas has come to the table, reached a settlement and admitted that it misled consumers.